Hi, and welcome back to the 30 Days of Podcasting Potential. I'm Deborah Northcutt of the Northcutt Agency. Now, today, I'm going to talk about spreading your podcasting magic, getting your podcast out there into the distribution platforms. So, we're diving into a topic that's like launching your podcast into the stratosphere, distribution platforms. I'm talking about how to get your podcast out to the eager listeners everywhere. Think of your distribution platforms as your launch pad. They're the platforms that catapult your episodes into the digital cosmos, making them accessible to a global audience. Get ready to share your podcasting magic. Now, you want to make sure that you choose the right platforms, and I'm going to tell you how to do that. Your hosting platform is like your podcast home base. Choose a reliable and a user friendly hosting provider like Anchor, Lisbon, or Podbean. These platforms store your podcast files and generate your podcast RSS feed, a must have for distribution. Podcast directories are where listeners discover new shows. Submit your podcast to popular directories like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and many, many more. Each directory has its submission process, so you want to make sure that you follow their directions and their guidelines closely. That way, you won't get kicked out or you won't be waiting for them to admit your podcast show and you didn't fill out the admission forms correctly. Platforms like Anchor can distribute your podcast to multiple directories with a single submission. So, therefore, you don't have to take the time to manually submit your podcast one by one to each podcast directory. This saves you time and ensures your podcast reaches a wider audience. You want your podcast reach to extend beyond podcasting platforms. Share your podcast and share your episodes on social media platforms like Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Visual content, teaser clips, and episode updates engage your existing audience and attract new listeners. A podcast website, it's your digital headquarters. It's where listeners can learn more about your show, access your show notes, and find links to your episodes. A website adds credibility and provides a central hub for your podcasting activities. Now, you want to make sure that you engage with podcast communities. Join platforms like Reddit, podcasting forums, and social media groups related to your niche. Engaging in discussions and sharing your episodes will attract dedicated listeners. Now, how do you get your podcast to shine in search results? By optimizing SEO for discovery. This is how you do it. Optimize your podcast title, episode titles, and descriptions with relevant keywords. This helps listeners find your episodes when they search for specific topics. Now, make sure you team up with fellow podcasters, collaborate with other podcast hosts for cross promotion. This will introduce your podcast to their audience and vice versa. It will introduce their audiences to your podcast, extending and expanding your reach. Podcast distribution platforms often provide analytics that reveal valuable insights. You can track metrics like downloads, listeners' demographics, and engagement. Analytics guide your content strategy, and it also helps tailor your episodes to your audience preferences. Now, you're launching your podcast into the digital universe, spreading your passion and creativity to listeners far and wide. With distribution platforms as your launchpad, your podcast becomes accessible to global audiences. So set your podcasting rocket on a trajectory of success and watch as your episodes reach new listeners on a journey of discovery. And if you need help getting on podcast shows, schedule a time with me or schedule a call with me. Go to bit.ly/talk with Deborah. That's bit.ly/talk with Deborah. Now, in my next session, I'll talk about the art of podcasting promotion and how to effectively foster audience engagement. Stay tuned for my podcasting insights and promotion strategies. I'll see you tomorrow at 9 a.m. Central Daylight Time. Bye for now.